Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And tonight we have special guest Victorya Brandart. Victoria, thank you for being our guest tonight. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's our pleasure. So, Victoria's new movie is called The Institute, and it actually released today on video on demand. And we're going to be breaking down the movie in this interview. Uh, Very interesting movie. I got to ask you, Victoria, when you booked the role and you got to read the entire script, what were your initial thoughts on the whole plot, mad scientist type of story?
I thought it was fantastic. Really, really piqued my interest because of obviously at the end we've got that total twist. But what I really loved out of the whole story is really the subject matter of infertility, and really the struggle that families go through and all those trials and tribulations to get a human. And I thought that was going to be something that people would really relate to.
Absolutely. Now, you play the character of Marie, uh, and what makes your character more intriguing and you and your husband Daniel is the fact that you recently lost a baby. Okay? And when people are put through that kind of trauma, uh, I don't know if the term not thinking clearly or but they're willing to do whatever it takes to have a child again, to gain back what they've lost. When you were put and got in front of that camera and you were ready to portray Marie, was it difficult for you to get into her headspace?
Yes and no. I have not tried having a child before. I do have some fertility issues myself, so that definitely is something that has made things much easier because I have had the stress of, what if this is not going to work for me in the future when I do try. So it wasn't difficult in that sense, but it was in the sense that I haven't been through that with my husband. I haven't actually tried and gone through those great lengths to actually get to that point of having a child.
Did you do any kind of research, talk to people to try to get a better understanding of the trauma that they suffer when people do lose a child, especially during pregnancy?
Yeah, I did. I did research forums online, Reddit. There's such a big community on Reddit where you can talk to mothers and kind of see the experiences that they've gone through.
So, when it came time to shoot, what did you do, if you did anything, to slip into the character of Marie throughout the different phases of the movie? In the beginning, we see you and your husband grieving, especially when you guys find that onesie. It brings back a lot of memories. And then ultimately going to this doctor and institute who's quote unquote a miracle doctor. Uh, Never once did you guys question it? Now, when you were building the backstory of your character, did you just attribute that to the recent grief and trauma that you guys have suffered?
Yes and no. I mostly focused on the desperation factor and really getting getting that idea of focus on the idea of this is our last shot, as Marie says when she sits Danny down. She knows that's the last shot, and any and every obstacle that will be in her path, I don't know if subconsciously she's just not willing to recognize it,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe she sees it, but she's like, I don't care. I'm getting this baby no matter what. This is our last shot. I had that thought as Marie when Danny shows me his laptop and shows me, the institute, and I know that at that time that was probably going to be the last time that I was ever going to try it, and I almost said no, and I said yes because I convinced myself to try one last time.
Okay.
Um,
That makes perfect
yeah,
sense. There's a real
yeah,
emotional scene between you and Danny when you guys are in the institute he's begging you to leave. The doctor is telling you to sit down. You're not going anywhere, and he's laying this guilt trip on you. Do you want your baby to survive? Do you want your baby to be healthy? And you really are stuck. One moment you choose to go with your husband, and then you go back with the doctor. That is just so hard to put yourself in that position. Were there any special techniques that you used? One hand, the husband; the other hand, chance of having a baby.
I can't really answer that. That was just something in the moment, and it was just really that struggle. There wasn't really necessarily a technique with that. I just knew what I wanted, and what I wanted was being threatened with this by this individual that he had information that I didn't know. He
Hmm.
told me that the baby would die if I left.
Yeah, he used all kind of scare tactics to make sure that you didn't leave. Did you and Ignacio, who plays your husband, and he did a great job as well? Did you guys rehearse that scene, talk about it before you actually shot it?
From what I recall, yes, we did rehearse it quite a bit, but I don't recall having an actual technique for that specifically.
How would you say the work chemistry was between you and Ignacio? Did you guys find working together very easy? Did you guys pick up off each other's cues and whatnot?
Absolutely, he's really really easy to work with. He is a true professional. That's why I'm very very happy that I casted him. Um, he he's on top of it, and it was it was I was in it when I was with him. So we really bounced back off of one another. It was very organic.
You are also a producer on this film. How much, how active were you in the production part of the film?
I was more active on the pre-production aspect, casting, of course, as I mentioned as well, a little bit of financing, and then in terms of the actual production itself, I took a little bit of a backseat and I put my actor hat on and focus more on Marie because I needed to allow her all that time to focus on. This is a very deep thing that she's going through, and I couldn't focus on production during that time. And after production, of course, I was part of post production as well, in some ways.
So, like you said, when it came time to shoot, you handed over the reins to the writer, director, Hamas, I believe is his name.
Yes,
Yeah, he,
some
he he also has a small cameo in the movie as well. Uh, but he wrote it, directed it. Did you have complete trust that once you handed over the reins, everything was in good hands?
absolutely. I did not work with Hamza before, but I think that we were on the same page in terms of what we were trying to do. The film does have shock value, obviously, especially with the sexual nature of it,
Hmm.
given that this is a film about fertility.
Yeah.
But I definitely did trust in what he was going to do because I think we all have the same goals when it comes to that production.
What I found really frustrating, which is good frustrating as a viewer, because the characters are not behaving the way you would imagine you would behave in that situation, is when Danny comes to you saying, "Hey, this guy is recording us. He's recording our private moments," and that did not he didn't really push the issue besides mentioning it once or twice, and it did not really seem to phase you. What would you attribute that to, and why Marie just wasn't phased that this doctor was filming some of your most intimate moments with your husband?
I think possibly, aside from what we discussed earlier, in that she probably had pushed all that away and decided internally that she wasn't going to look at any type of obstacle that would come in the way. And she did seem a little bit oblivious, but I also feel like there might be no relationship is perfect. So there might have been some situation in the past between her and Danny where he might have over exaggerated on things, and maybe she's like, I don't see any cameras. I looked. Please stop being so paranoid. Like, you're messing with me right now. Let's do this
Okay.
thing.
Is that the backstory that you built for Marie as to explain that situation? Because it's not explained to us in the movie, but almost all actors build their own backstory. Is that the backstory that you built up for Marie and your relationship with your husband?
I had to build, yes, that's one of the things that I built up for her. Yeah. Just
So,
to, because you can't be oblivious when someone tells you multiple times. So she did have to have some sort of like a relationship issue as well.
now, Danny, your husband seems to bear some guilt in regards to your relationship. That's that backstory that you built up. Was there a chance that he might have cheated on you at some point in the past, and that's where he might have lost some of the trust factor?
There actually was no cheating in the past. No. I just think that there wasn't, it just wasn't a perfect relationship, and they weren't always on the same page. And he was very focused on his work, and she was just focused on being a mother. And, sometimes she felt like she was in it alone, as she did at the Institute again.
Yes, yes. So, Hamza, who wrote and directed this, how did you meet? Did you guys known each other for a while? How did you get to be in this movie? Producer, like we said, Hamza wrote it, directed it. How did your involvement come to be?
It's an interesting question. I went to New York to take a little bit of a break from the industry, which um,
That's not the right place to
I
go.
I left LA. I went to New York and I took a little bit of a break. But while I was taking that break, of course, I once you are in film, you can't leave film. So I found I don't know if it was some sort of a group, a film lovers group, some networking events where a lot of actors would go. And I started sharing with them that I'm a producer as well. And I've produced various projects in the past, short films, and I'm looking to produce my first feature. And it was really in line with what they were looking to do. So it just happened. 3 years
That's
later, here we are.
That's great that it all lined up so perfectly. Because putting a movie together from financing and it's an extremely difficult thing, and I have the deepest respect for anybody that puts together a finished product and actually gets it to today, which is the premiere of the Institute on video on demand platforms all over the, at least here in North America. So, congratulations on that. And you said you have a love for producing. As you move forward in your career, is that something you want to do more of as well as acting? Are you okay just being a producer? Where does your true love lie?
It's a great question. I enjoy acting. It's quite cathartic for anyone who's done it and really been in the character. Uh, But I think that production is really what drives me. My background is management. I love business, and really combining the two loves of my life is the best way to do it for me. So I do have another film that I'm producing come this summer, and it's going to be another feature film. Again, kind of a psychological thriller type. So that's kind of what I'm excited about now.
You are no stranger to horror. You have done horror. That's, like I said, you're not a stranger to the genre. Having this be your first feature film that you produced, did you walk away from this experience learning something that you just had no idea you were going to learn?
Yes, I wish that we had more time. Learned a lot. I'm so thankful. It is such a great experience to have had. I'm so glad I did it.
The location of the film is really interesting. May I ask, where did you guys actually film?
Yes, of course. So we filmed in obviously Chinatown in New York, and then also in the Catskills Mountains.
That's kind of weird because New York is not the. It used to be. I mean, back in the '80s and '90s, films were either shot in New York or LA. Now that has changed. You know, Georgia, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Toronto. Just the studios themselves and filmmakers are located in either LA or New York. Why did you actually choose to shoot in New York City? I mean, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, so this was something that Hamza, the director, really wanted, and he had that location, the house all set up for the film, and the way that he painted the house, and I think really the way the home was built, if I'm not mistaken, was built for the film. So prior to me meeting him, he had all that kind of planned out. So he's really adamant about doing that, and it was convenient for me because I was already there. So
So,
um,
so
it's all good.
the actual institute is in Manhattan. The
It's
well,
actually yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna ask, is that where it was? The interior of the institute that was actually in Manhattan.
It was no, it was in the Catskills
The cat.
Mountains.
Okay, that makes more. Because I'm from New York City, and I'm like,
Yeah,
especially the exterior. That is definitely not New York City. Okay, so those were those were what you shot up in the Catskills, which is an extremely beautiful area. You know, being in that location and shooting it, were you guys presented with any difficulties or challenges?
being in the Catskills. No, not necessarily. We didn't even talk about this being the COVID era.
Yeah.
Yes, that was difficulty. But no. Other than that, being in the Catskills was great. We didn't get bothered by anyone. There were some mosquitoes, but I think that was a really good call,
How
honestly.
how did you guys handle working around COVID? Did you guys what year did you shoot this?
This was shot in 2020, end
So
of 2020.
so you guys were doing it right in the thick of it, right? You know, where everything lockdown was sort of starting to dissipate, but we were still in the thick of COVID. Did that in itself present a lot of challenges? And is that why you wished you had more time?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was challenging because it was Q4 of 2020, right? And what was it, Q2 when we found out about COVID? So it still was a novel virus. It felt like, and we didn't know what the liabilities were, how sick someone can get. And it was pretty scary at that time.
Yeah.
So it was just concerning. It was concerning taking care of the people. We also yeah, we were just very careful. Everyone was tested and wore a mask, and it was pretty uncomfortable doing it in a mask the entire time, especially for the crew.
It is. It is. Going back to the movie and Marie, at which point in the film do you think Marie completely, you know, devotes everything to the doctor, forgets about her husband, and just becomes devoted to her baby and what the doctor can offer her?
Hmm. Yeah, um, the first meeting that Marie has with the doctor after she arrives to the institute, that pretty much sets the tone for the remainder of the film, and in her commitment to trust this man that she had just met, that promises her essentially what she's wished for a long time. And it's when they meet out in the field.
Do you
They
think?
take a walk.
Do you think that? I mean, we touched on this already, but considering the end of the film, which we're not going to spoil, do you think she was happy and content with the Marie herself, your character, with what she got in the end of the film? And I'm wording that in a way not to give away any spoilers.
Thank you for mentioning that again. Yeah, definitely. It's hard to describe it without giving any spoilers. We don't know if she was happy, right, at that point. Given that she was willing to stay back in a different scene, willing to stay back for the baby,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not Danny was going to be there with her, tells me that she was willing to have any baby, um, no matter what, with or without him, no
That's
matter
true.
what happened,
That's true.
was happy
One
in a way.
one of the things that's never really explained to us in the institute is the doctor's motivations. Why is he doing what he is doing? Uh, did you come up with your own motivations? Did you have any discussions with Hamza? Did he share as the writer why the doctor was motivated to do what he did?
I believe it was commercial interest.
Okay,
I think,
I could see
uh,
that.
yeah, he was kind of a mad scientist type, but he also was getting paid a lot by,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to talk about something and be careful not to give away any spoil. It's so difficult because you just want to spill the beans and ask all the really interesting questions. Uh,
Yeah, oh my God.
but Victoria, you were really fabulous in this movie. I was watching the end credits. I saw your name pop up as a producer, and I'm like, that is so kick ass and awesome. You did a great job as a producer, as the leading role. You and Ignacio, the two leading roles. Lots of other great actors in this film that supported you. You guys put together something really special. And again, guys, the movie is called The Institute. I'm assuming it's available on all the major Amazon, like transactional platforms, Amazon Prime Video, Vudu, Google Play. Please go out, guys, rent it, buy it, watch this movie. It's an interesting story that you haven't really seen quite told the way Hamza and Victoria tell it. So great job, Victoria, on the film. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the kind words. We really appreciate it. It wasn't easy to make for our first official feature film, but I think that this is going to be a really nice future, and then you'll be seeing some more projects from us.
Absolutely. And I got to ask you before we go, how are you
Sure.
feeling tonight getting your first feature film done and finally out there for the public to see? What are you feeling today, especially?
I, it's actually surreal. I haven't let it sunk in. I've had a really long day, so um, haven't really felt it yet. I guess maybe we'll see later.
I think the movie's going to do very well. Yeah, thank you to our audience again. Thank you, Victoria. On behalf of Victoria and myself, stay safe, guys, and stay walking. Good night.